All right, guys. So we're here this week doing the Elite Racing podcast. We have me, the host, Rowdy Zelensky, in the booth with my man Chad Frankenfield next to me.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good. Do you want to introduce the other two that are joining us this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So our Project Cars 2, one of our Project Cars 2 drivers, he's actually one of our officials as well on the Project Cars 2. He's actually ran a couple of our leagues on there. Doot, he's from Canada. He's a elite Formula C Series champion, Formula Renault, and um, the Formula or Elite Rallycross champion as well. He has over 250 starts with us, over 30 poles, 38 wins, and 100 and I believe 110 podiums. So he's one of our very successful Project Cars drivers. Um, and then one of our guys from the NASCAR Heat 2 world, Mega Driver, 86. Mega is full time in our uh, Elite Cup Series, Elite Light Series, and the Elite BK Hale Truck Series on NASCAR Heat 2. He's also driven in our Project Cars 2 leagues a little bit, which is kind of neat. So that he is familiar with Dude a little bit. He has over 200 starts, actually earned his 200th start a week and a half ago. He has a pole, 5 wins, and 30 podiums with us. So another very successful driver. Both guys are in our Hall of Fame. So um, yeah, so I guess we can get started. We can go right into the NASCAR Heat 2 stuff. So, Levi, if you got any questions you could throw at Mega, I can also add some stuff in too.
Yes.
Absolutely. You guys hear me okay?
Yep, you got a
Yeah,
copy.
got a copy.
Yes, I do.
All right. So I'm fairly new to Elite, so kind of give me a rundown of what goes on in the NASCAR Heat style of racing right now in Elite.
Mega,
For
you can
Chad
take
or
that
for
one.
me.
No, Mega, you can take that.
We have 3 different series going on right now. Ever since the start of NASCAR Heat 2 back in September, somewhere around September 15th, I believe, we've had a series that runs on Tuesdays. We have a truck series that runs 75% of their normally advertised length. That was a very popular series. I think it's a little bit more laid back. The trucks are more stable. They don't have as much power, and they're probably overall the easiest to drive on the game. That series had tremendous attendance. I think there were a bunch of races. We've had 14, 17 different drivers. Friday is the Cup Series, which is kind of the original series that I was in because obviously the Cup cars were the only series available before that. NASCAR games haven't had anything other than just the top level NASCAR series for about, what is it, 8 or 9 years. That's the Friday night series, 50% of the normal Cup Series length. Probably the most prestigious, the most oversteer, loosest cars, fastest cars, lots of fun. That generally has the best attendance of the 3 series. Saturday night is probably my favorite series. The Elite Light Series runs the Xfinity Series cars, which are the second highest NASCAR series. They also run 50% of the cup distance, or as close as we can, depending upon how the races are set up. All 3 very competitive. We've had qualifying times where like first to 10th is like 14 or 17 hundredths of a second off, or even less than that. It's an extremely tight field. You have to be absolutely perfect to win in any one of these 3 series. That's what's so amazing about all 3.
Yeah, and to elaborate off of that, it's what's interesting about the NASCAR Heat 2 is, a lot of us obviously know that it's not necessarily sim. It's probably the more arcade-like version of the game of the things we run, but it does require a different skill set. Um, the racing is very, very close. So you're constantly around other cars. Um, obviously it's not similar to iRacing as far as how the cars handle and stuff like that, but it's very tight. Mistakes are magnified because the fields are so close. And then our fields have been. It's been pretty popular. We usually get at least 10 to 12 every race, and that's for a game that's been out for a while, so it's pretty good. Um, but like Mega said, the field's really really tight, and it requires a different skill set. We've seen guys from Project Cars come over and ran a couple races and never showed up again because they were just they got the doors blown off. Or guys come from Iracing that have NASCAR heat as well, and they might run a race and they're like, okay, this is not what I was expecting, and they don't come back anymore either because it's so competitive. It just requires a different skill set. So when we look at the NASCAR Heat 2 leagues, obviously we are in the playoffs. The Elite Cup Series, which is our Friday night league, that goes into Phoenix this Friday. That's our last race of round one. Currently, 2 drivers of the 12 are locked into the next round. It's Scout and Rockstar. I am P1 right now, 56 points up. Joe is 21, Mega's 20, Haven 16, Chickens 13, Strawberries 11 points up from the playoff cutoff. RS Meat Wagons 11 back, Mizzou's 13 now, Bush Fans 17, and then Storms obviously he didn't make any races yet in the playoffs, so he's way out. So this Friday is the last race of round one. Don't know. It's going to be interesting. Meat Wagon's probably going to have to win a race. Mizzou's probably going to have to win a race to advance, but we've seen, some different things going on. Then we look at the Truck Series, which just finished its first round past Tuesday. So those playoff drivers are me, Old Man, Storm, Brody, Josh Hodges, Mizzou, Strawberry, and Mega. So obviously that series kicks off this Tuesday with the next round, and then Saturday's the lights. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, Mega. If you have the points up, but the 8 playoff drivers, the playoffs start this Saturday for that as well. As me, Scout, Mizzou, Storm, Troils, Mega, Strawberry, and Barn, and that series kicks off round 2 this Saturday. Mega, do you have anything to add as far as NASCAR Heat 2 leagues are concerned? You can talk about your personal. So you're currently in all 3 playoffs. So what do you think about your odds here? I mean, now we're in the second round for both. At the Cup Series, obviously, this Friday is the last race to that. But like I said, you do have a decent buffer. So really, all 3 series are going to be in the second round. So what do you think? You have a good shot of advancing through to this round. Obviously, last season you weren't able to get to a Final Four. So would you say that's a goal for yourself to get to at least one of the Final Four?
Right. For this set of playoffs, I know that I'm not the best talent by any means. Just look at my ratio of starts to podiums to wins. But please keep in mind that a lot of those are Heat 2 races. I've had solid success. I feel like I've had moments here, especially in the last month or so, where I've been just that little skosh away from winning. Remember, Chad, at Kansas in the Cup Series, I finished 1/1000th of a second behind, Chicken. I almost had a win. I have a win in the Cup Series. I think it was on Heat Evolution. I've had a couple of moments here recently where it's like, man, I've got it. I can compete. I could possibly steal one of these wins.
Absolutely, yeah, and I noticed that too. And the funny thing is, you're one of the guys that actually will dabble with the Project Cars stuff. Mainly because you have a wheel, so it makes it a little bit more sim-like for you to join both. And do you feel the Project Cars stuff has helped you, especially on the road courses on NASCAR Heat 2? Because me and you were in a battle at Road America, and really, I mean, you probably were fast at Road America, and most part you fast. Do you feel the Project Cars 2 stuff has helped you, especially on the road courses on the NASCAR side?
I've really thought about that recently. It's so hard to tell. The technique it's mostly because of the physics model. Heat 2 rewards you for really abusing the truck in the braking zones. A big part of why I'm fast on the road courses on Heat 2 is not only do I have a wheel, I do have a stick shift. So I will go from 4th to 2nd gear under braking. It's kind of like what Marcus Ambrose used to do at Sonoma. He would actually skip a gear. It helped him slow the car down faster. But
Yep.
it's really hard on the transmission. Whenever you're on Project Cars 2, you really can't do that smoothly. I can't go from sixth gear straight to fourth gear in a Corvette entering turn 1 at Road America. The physics models are so different that it's really difficult to try to learn from one to the other. So, not really, but I definitely have an advantage on the road courses because of my Logitech G29 and my open wheeler racing seat. I have a stick shift. Everything's all mounted up nice. 4K TV. I've got the best setup of probably just about anybody in that Heat 2 group. The wheel really makes the difference at the road courses. It's so difficult to be precise with an analog stick, at least on the road courses.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So going into, obviously, again, like I said, we'll wrap up the NASCAR Heat 2 and the Cup Series is at Phoenix this Friday. That's going to be 156 laps. The Light Series kicks off round 2. They're at Kansas Saturday. Obviously, I won't make that race. And then the trucks will be at Bristol Tuesday. So Bristol usually tends to be a pretty good race with the trucks. So and I won't be at that one either. So hopefully I get my playoff points carried through that. Levi, do you got anything else for Mega before we let him go?
Yeah, so Mega, you being one of the seems like the top guys in the NH2 series, I'd just like to know like who do you think that are gonna be the highest competition going into the playoffs and to the second round and getting to that final stage? Who would be your competition that you're gonna want to go against and that you know is gonna be there for you?
Chad is like, and I mean this in the most pleasant way possible, he's like a Kyle Busch from a talent perspective. He sets the bar every single race. What's he doing? How fast is he? How aggressive is he going with a setup? What line is he running? Chad sets the standard for NASCAR Heat 2. Same goes for all the series, really. Everything that he's in, he's relevant, he's fast, he sets the standard, no doubt about it.
I guess a quick question to follow up. Do you think Chad is fast due to the iRacing abilities, or is it just his overall just general and racing series? What would you say would be his biggest success?
One thing that I noticed, especially watching him in the Indianapolis 500, which I was in the first Indy 500 for Project Cars 2 in the Elite IndyCar series, is how ridiculously smooth he is. I really kind of drive my sports cars like a go-kart. I kind of juke the wheel a lot. I'm always correcting. I really need to learn how to be smooth. He's smooth. He lets the car do the work. That's what makes him so fast. Other guys try to overdo everything trying to catch up. Smooth is always fast.
Awesome. Guess a follow up too. So we just heard the new release of NH3 coming out. What are you guys' thoughts so far on jumping to that game when it does come out?
Well, I'll go
You go
real
ahead.
quick. I think obviously, we've discussed that it's one of those things where they're constantly building on it. If you're expecting it to be iRacing, you're going to be disappointed. I've told that to a bunch of different people. The reality is it's $50. It's a game that's very raceable. You can really run around people. The tracks are real. The cars, they look real. Um, I think it's always going to be a learning curve to see what they add, what they don't add. On this one with the Dirt Series, it's going to be crazy with the Dirt Series because now we kind of went in with a different league as well, so we might have fields of over 20 cars for the late model series, which is fun. But I think it just adds another challenge. But I mean, Meg, if you got anything else to add to that.
Based on everything that I've read in the video that we've seen, we shouldn't expect the payment series to change a whole lot. Still going to be a little bit on the arcadey side, a lot of on throttle time, but this dirt league is going to be the state of the art, coolest thing on consoles. Console Racing League, dirt late models, my favorite class of dirt cars in the world. such gorgeous machines. I love watching races. I love going to late model races. That series, if they're even remotely realistic, that is going to be the best series on Heat 3, no doubt. I'm looking forward to it so much.
Yeah, it's a big advancement to definitely have console getting dirt racing like we have over here. So I think that's really cool to see. I haven't raced console in about probably 4 or 5 years now, but I do remember my console days, and it was pretty fun. I will say the least.
Definitely. There's people that have been trying to make dirt car games for like 10 years on PS3 and PS4. They never could get the funding. I think Big Ant Studios has been trying really hard to get funding. But for 704 Games to take a stab at it, even though they have the NASCAR licensing, is a really, really impressive feat, especially considering how complex that physics model has to be.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun to see and a lot of fun to watch, especially since you guys are starting to do that ERL TV on Twitch. So it's kind of fun to watch you guys in the cars. People I don't know because I'm on the iRacing side, but it's kind of cool to watch people like you guys run at it, and especially it just gives me back to console days. So it's kind of cool just to watch and see you guys do what you do. I mean, I remember coming from there too, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, kudos to Josh, Personet, Alex, or Alec, and everybody else at Mega as well that put time into that Twitch because it's really benefited all the series. It's really neat how that works, where you can see 3, 4 different onboards, different streams at the same time, and we're actually getting decent numbers in the streams from that. And Car Race a couple weeks ago drew about 80 views, which is not massive, but it's big for something like this. So Mega, thank you for coming on. Dude, you got a copy?
You're welcome, guys.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. All right, there's Dude. All right, so I'll kind of get the ball rolling on this end first, just so you get comfortable with the Project Cars stuff. So we have 3 current Project Cars 2 leagues that are active. We have the Sunday multi-class league, which has kind of been off and on for a couple seasons now, using the LMP1 cars, GTE cars. That is, like I said, every other Sunday. Then our midweek series, which Doot usually runs, and he's kind of running ahead on it, is our Elite Formula C series. Formula C series is interesting because that has roots all the way back to PCars1, similar to IndyCar. But what's been interesting about that is it's a different car in this game, way different driving model, and Dude's going to elaborate on that. And then Fridays we have our Pit Lane Parlay Elite IndyCar series, which is have a new sponsor next season. We're going to announce here shortly. That's probably our most competitive league. I would maybe even say across the board. We are constantly getting probably 10 to 15 drivers. Usually 4 to 5 different countries are active in each race. The points battle is insane. We're going to talk about that a little bit with the Indy cars. But we'll start with the multi-class. We don't have tons of data on right now because it's only been 2 races. Texas time, one of our newer drivers actually is dominated at Spa a couple weeks ago. Last week was in a good position to dominate again with one of his buddies, Spidey. But Spidey was also involved in that as well. Spidey had a misfortunate accident. It looked like Texas was going to run away with the LMP1 class. Decided to go to slicks way too early in a race where the track was soaked. Me and Doot got into a 15-lap absolute battle. Me and Doot, it's funny because me and him were arch rivals on the track, like absolutely, like nobody else I want to beat more in any series than him. But then off the track, it's more civil. It's more, okay, what is the best for the series? But it's funny how me and him switch back and forth, and I'm sure he'll talk about that a little bit. But the multi-class, so me and him were going at it, like absolutely just with the energy recovery system. I would use it on the straightaways. He was using it to the corner. I think we swapped the lead 15 times and so many laps. I mean, it was, and then me and him got into it a little bit. There was a little bit of contact, turn 1. Me and him went at it for like hours after the race. I mean, absolutely just went at it. And we probably still have different point of views on it, but it's one of those things where we have an official that says, "All right, we're done talking about this," and all of a sudden we're talking about our series. It's just crazy how that happens. But and then in the GTE class, SSJGZ Warrior, who's also an IndyCar driver, has won both at Spa and Silverstone, so he's a good lead. He's also the reigning champion. But before Levi jumps in, the multi-class, can you talk about those last few laps? Because we've had some crazy battles. I mean, when we look at the Formula C, recently IndyCar, where you've been obviously just as fast as anyone else, but what was going through your head in those last? Because I could see it and I can actually like hear it through the mic. Like I could hear the frustration of, oh my god, like you passed me again, and then you passed me back, and you could feel like there was like, holy crap, it's crazy. What was going through your head in those last few laps, especially with us going back and forth?
Well, pretty much like with all our battles, it's backing down pretty much almost isn't an option unless you slip on a curb or something like that, or put a foot wrong somewhere. But those last few laps, it was intense. The trying to constantly manage the energy recovery system, to have that little bit of extra to get the pass done, because obviously you don't want to be chasing, especially in that wet weather. The aero plays such a huge factor with the management of the tires, just trying to keep everything under control and stay ahead of you. But you're making it really, really hard. It was crazy how deep you could brake with that, the front axle recovering energy into some of the corners, even in the rain. I just, I guess got a little too overconfident in the end, and kind of got caught in a bad spot when my battery died, and we had that contact. But it was mostly just like tension building. Like every lap, it was like I'd kind of get a break, and then I'd kind of make a little mistake, and then all of a sudden, you'd just come flying down the straight, and I'd have you like right on my tail again, and it was just like stress and then relief and stress and then relief, and then it was basically just an eruption waiting to happen. And then we of course had a bit of a run in, and I was just lucky enough to kind of take a little bit less damage and be able to limp it to the win there. But even on those last few laps that I was just kind of limping it to the end, I got passed by Spidey, I believe, and the other Audi driven by Texas Time. So I knew that I had to, pretty much just stay nice and steady and not any more mistakes than I was already making.
Yeah, what's interesting about the LMP1 cars is obviously it has that energy recovery system, and for those guys that may not be familiar with that, it's just like a huge energy boost, and it's the Indy cars that push the pass, which if you're going 175 on a straight eight, it might bump you to 179. The energy recovery will bump you from 175 to 190. And it's just crazy how you guys manage it. Texas, like I said, has been the class of the field. I mean, he's mastered the ability to harness that energy and just use it. And I mean, he's braking and accelerating at the same time, almost every corner, building that energy up. Because when you brake, that's when the energy builds back up. And he just, like I said, he mastered that. So, but I would use it on the straightaways. Doot him to use it through the corners, and it just really kind of like, it was way different philosophy on that. Then with the Formula C series, Tuesdays, we actually just had a round one. Again, something that you guys will see, and guys that have raced with us, and Levi, you'll pick up on this as well, is that me and Doot, especially in the Formula C, it's really like, you know what, like if I don't win the championship, I got to at least Doot. And it's the same way back and forth. Project Cars 1, it's got a little bit of a backstory. This is really where the rivalry kind of began. So Project Cars 1, for the first one of the C series, we ran overall points. It was just a single shot race. One of the guys who was leading the championship actually had to back out. So basically I was gifted the first championship. The second season, we changed the format around a little bit. We went to a modified, like almost like a playoff system, similar to what you see in NASCAR. And the idea behind it was to try to keep guys interested throughout the season, and it really did a good job. The problem was, And Levi, this is where you'll jump in, and I think you'll find it funny, is guys that are NASCAR fans, like the playoffs, like, yes, like I personally don't like playoffs at all, but we've learned to live with it since it's been around since 2004. Dude's from Canada. NASCAR is like, probably he looks at a stock car and he looks at it as a tank and probably wants no interest in anything to do with it. So to him, in the beginning of the season, I was like, oh, okay, this looks exciting. Well, he dominated what we would call the regular season. He just dominated. He racked up win podiums. And then we got to the chase playoff, whatever you want to call it, and I just was on a streak. I just turned it up, and I think I won 4 out of the 6 races. But basically, the playoffs is what led to me winning the championship in season 2, and Doot dominated the regular season. I mean, the setups were on par. I mean, he was blowing everybody away, and then the playoffs for me something clicked with me, and Dude actually, he legit, I thought he was going to quit racing with us because he was just so frustrated that, how could that happen? How could he dominate and all of a sudden, it's just gone like that? And luckily he came back. Season 3, it was the switch reverse where I was the regular season, I just was on it. I was winning races, doing everything I needed to. And then the chase or playoffs, whatever you want to call it, Dude went on it. And I think the overall season points was, I think he still would have finished 1 point behind me, but in the playoffs he blew me away. So he ended up winning the season 3 championship, which I think was his first championship in Elite. So it was a big moment. Season 4 we were on PlayStation, or we were on Project Cars 2. Again, similar kind of where Doot was very fast in the first half of the season. I got some setup help halfway through the season, which he wasn't thrilled about, and I just dominated, and that's how I ended up winning the championship last season. So then we jump into this season. It's the same thing where it's constant back and forth. To review round 1 and 2, Zolder. So there's going to be double headers, single headers. This was one of our double header nights. Rookie driver, way too fast for you. He made his first win. Very rare to see that with us, but he won the first race. Doot was on the podium, Stay Down on the podium. Stay Down's obviously and one of those guys. I think he might be he's one of 2. Me and him are the only 2 guys that have won championships on different platforms. Where he won the season 2 Elite Cup Series championship. He's also won Elite Touring Car champion. He's an elite elite radical champion. So he's very well disciplined, and we'll talk about him more with the IndyCar. He got the podium as well. And then race 2, way too fast, kind of came back to reality a little bit. He struggled, finished 4th. But Doot won race 2 with Relics and stayed on the podium. So before we dive into the Formula C, Levi, do you got any kind of questions asked to him towards Doot as in regards to the Formula C series?
Yeah. Which one's doing the playoff series?
What's that?
Which one's doing the playoffs?
So
season 2.
Yeah, so Formula C, we did the playoffs that format, and we actually did this before. The way we did it, the way we worked it was, if you won a race, you had 3 points. You finished second, you got 2. You got third, you got a point going into the playoffs. And this was before NASCAR even invented the playoff point things that they did. Season 2, Season 3, we did that. Season 4 was on Project Cars 2, where we just went overall points again. So this season, it's overall points again as well. So, but like I said, if you have any questions for Dude on that, you can shoot him his way.
Yeah, I guess for me, what was the decision to go back to overall points versus the playoff points? Because for me, I'm kind of in the limbo, on the NASCAR side. I don't really. When you have playoffs, it's very one-sided, could be, because those may not be the tracks that you're really that great at, but you have to do it anyways. So, to me, I think playoffs can be somewhat biased depending on the driver and who it is. So what are your thoughts on going back to the overall, and why was that decision made?
Well, like Chad was saying, I'm from Canada, so NASCAR is really not that big of a thing around here, and it honestly took me half a season just to kind of get Chad to explain it and then re-explain it to me, how it actually worked. And I was just like, well, I'm doing good, so I probably got this one in the bag, right? And then at the end of the season, I kind of like realized the lay of the land, the way the playoffs work, and yeah, Chad lit me up, and that was extremely frustrating because oh man, like obviously I was pretty much a rookie at that point, so I was like putting in quite a few hours just a week, trying to make sure I'm like in tip top shape for the races. So losing that was pretty soul crushing. So I was pretty bitter at the end of that, and I was like, well, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna just kind of slack off in the main season, and then I'm gonna do what Chad did to me, and stick the knife in his back when we're in the playoffs, and just go hard then. And I was luckily able to wrap it up, I believe, at Oscherschleben in the last race, get a good enough points lead from Chad, and just dominate that, which was pretty much redemption, and pretty much got me completely hooked on sim racing, and I haven't really looked back since. But the switch back to the overall points is, I think everybody was kind of tired of the, everybody would kind of just slack off during the regular season, and then everybody would go hard. I think everybody was just like, you know what, let's just consistently everybody show up, try their best throughout the whole season, and then the points will basically tell you who did the best.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah. So the one thing too is the thing with the Formula C is it's a slower car. We kind of call it Indy Lights, but it's really even slower than that. The cars don't brake very well. They don't accelerate very well. But they drive really well around other cars. Like you don't really get that arrow push effect. You can really drive around guys. You can really run too wide around almost every corner on the track. So now going into let's first discuss round one. Race one on my end, it was we had a insane battle for third position. Me, Stay Down, and Relics. We were just 2 wide, 3 wide, and once the field single filed out, it was first through sixth was basically run the exact same times. It was really impressive. If we had a caution, that really would have filled up. Race two, though, this is where Doot, I'd like Doot to add in. So race two, we did random weather, and the track was just absolutely drenched. It was heavy rain, fog. There were sections of the tracks that were almost like a supercross track where we were bouncing up and down over bumps and puddles, and Dude will elaborate on this a little bit further, but for some reason he just seems to really, when we get the fog involved, it's not even just when it's a wet track, but like the fog, that's where he just blows people away and had to keep on the race for like 12 seconds. So if you want to talk about what you had in race two, because that was something we haven't seen in a while as far as dominance is concerned.
Yeah. Well, as soon as I seen that the weather for the first start of the race was going to be heavy fog and rain, I was pretty excited because mixed conditions seem to play pretty well into my hands. I don't know if it's like just push a little too hard when I shouldn't. That maybe explains my accidents in other series, but that strategy really seems to work in the rain, especially as we hit that drying phase. I just realized you could get so much more grip through some of these corners, and these rain tires have like pretty much no degradation, so you could just pretty much almost push it like a dry tire, not quite as hard, but when you're going through some of the fast right-handers after a little technical section going through turn one, I was pretty much like almost taking that like I would in the dry. The track pretty much suited it. I didn't have any sort of overheating, but then the fog came back in for the last section, and I pretty much had practiced enough that I just trusted myself. I knew where my breaking points were. I only really made one mistake because I was really trying to kind of make up a little bit extra time in one chicanes because I kept losing a little bit to everybody else there. So I was okay, I got to break later, and I kind of got into the gravel, and the lead came down to about 2 seconds, and I just pushed, and didn't make any mistakes, and it was just like a dream. The last few minutes, the car got a little light on fuel, so I was kind of dancing around, and Stay Down was really closing in on me. Could feel him breathing down my neck. Maybe had there been maybe 1 or 2 more laps, he would definitely probably have threw one down the inside on me, but I was lucky the race ended when it did, and I was able to, just bring the win home. At the restarts there, I had a couple run-ins. I got rear-ended at one, or the second one, and the first one, a car locked up on the inside and swept into the car that was beside me. I was on the far outside. That took me out. I was, luckily able to recover and get out of the pits quick enough, and kind of maintain some positions relative to the other damaged cars. And I thought, okay, I can do this. And then I got hit for the second time, and then I was just like, oh my god, just stressed right out. And I was like, okay, just keep your head down, stay calm. Trying to talk myself down, and then I was able to come out on fourth on the final restart, and I think Relics went a little wide at the restart, and they kind of pulled everybody else off, and I just kind of cruised by, and it was constantly correcting through those first couple of turns. And definitely the track was wet, but it's just as long as you could correct quick enough and be brave enough through the turns, it was winnable. Just like Relic said, he said pretty much in the rain anybody could have win it, and I pretty much came from the back and was able to dominate.
Yes, so you have your current points leader, and that obviously only after one round. Before we head over to the IndyCar side, Levi, do you have anything to add to that? Any questions, or should we just go right into IndyCar?
For me, never experienced the whole transition from rain to dry pavement. Like,
Yes,
what's the big difference? Like,
so Doot, one thing about iRacing is it's a really good simulator. It's awesome. But they don't have weather.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't have weather yet, or
they don't
time
have
of
weather.
change.
Yeah, so you don't see the night to day transition or the night or day to night. So yeah, they don't have weather, so that's completely new to Levi. So if you want to discuss what that's like, because that's definitely different, especially on Project Cars 2, where you actually have to predict what the weather's going to do.
Yeah, in the last few updates, they definitely got it spot on. I know at the start of, of any Project Cars game, it's a little rocky and a little jinky and janky here and there, but they really seem to have got the weather figured out, and especially the rain tires. They seem to last really long, and you don't really need to do a whole bunch of pressure adjustments to get them to kind of temp up, especially in the Formula C. But the transitions is it's constantly, trying to push more into the corner. It almost feels like a qualifying session that, it's your first time that you've ever really been in the car. You're constantly, experimenting and pushing as much as you dare, and then, hope you're not going to spin out. Luckily with the Formula C, you're able to kind of adjust the bars on the fly. So I was kind of adding a little front bar, taking out a little, rear bar when, it was really rainy, and then, vice versa when it was kind of drying out to, try to get the car to, settle into a good balance, especially as, you hit a wet patch of pavement to a dry patch pavement and then back to a wet patch. Through turn 1, 2, and 3, there was literally like little line puddles going through that, and you were switching directions constantly. I don't know how many laps I went through there side by side with somebody, and both our cars would be like, kicking out sideways as you're, trying to accelerate and get traction on the person, trying to take the position on you. And, it's all who can, get the power down the most efficiently, and who can, turn in and correct for that puddle that you're about to hit, or who can lift for, this little section of puddle and just coast through, because, it's too deep right now. You can't push too hard there. It's all about being really cautious, but then also, being brave where you dare being brave.
Well, it's funny you say the roll bars, because I had no clue that we could mess with those for them. See, so I'm going to have to try those out next time it rains. So,
Yeah, I would die.
so on the IndyCar end now, IndyCar's a 10 race season. It's our longest lasting series. This is our second series that we ever had. It's been in existence since 2016, so it's over 2.5 years old now, creeping up on that. So basically, we run the IndyCar series almost exactly like the real life series, as far as rules, regulation, the way the cautions work, the way the qualifying works. We have a knockout qualifying. It tends to be, like I said, the most competitive series we probably have. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, when we look at the drivers we have, it tends to get the better drivers, I think, because of the time slot on a Friday. We have guys from the United States, New Zealand, Australia, England, Chile, Colombia. Gosh, I mean, we have them all over the world that run with us. There's actually more guys outside the United States than inside the United States that run. So the way the IndyCar works is, we have our Indy 500, which has become an automatic. I think it's probably our biggest race in the elite, where we do full qualifying. I think we sent 11 drivers home this season. The 500 itself is just craziness. But so we're in round 9 of going into round 9 of 10. And we do the IndyCar points format. So these numbers may seem a little bit farther. Usually the points are, you earn a lot more points for first through third than you would in a lot of other series. So these points are literally first through third in a podium. So currently going into round 9, our reigning champion, Frankie, 205, he's from Australia. He's the point leader. He has 2 wins, 6 podiums, 3 poles. P2 is myself. I'm 9 points out. And I'm the season. And 2 poles. Sorry, I have 3 wins. He has 2 wins, 5 poles, and 2 poles. 13 points out. And the way the IndyCar points format, you get 50 points for the win, 40 for second, 35 for third. So it's literally first through third. I mean, it's going into Silverstone. Now, dude, really, you kind of early on, you weren't very interested in the car. Especially in Project Cars 1. Project Cars 2, you started to get into it. Lately, though, obviously you're on Ganassi with Frankie and Rolex. It seems like that setup help has really improved your time. You're 75 points out. You're 6th in the championship. Now, you did miss a race. You were actually the first guy in the standings that missed a race. So everybody above you has been here for every race. Now, 75 points out, again, may seem like a huge gap. No, it's probably not going to turn into a championship. But so, like I said, that's not too bad. What was it about this season that clicked? I mean, because I go through your standings. You had a 2nd at Hockenheim, 7th at Le Mans, 4th at the Indy GP, Indianapolis 7th, Road America 3rd, where you probably could have won Road America if I'm correct. You probably one of the fastest guys. And then Imola and Long Beach, you were right up there as far as speed's concerned. What is it about this season that clicked for you? Because I know going into next season, you're definitely going to be in the title fight.
This season, I feel like halfway through, I definitely feel like the tire model update really seemed to suit me. When Project Cars 2 first came out, I had a real hard time finding some good wheel settings that felt good to me, to the point where I could feel what the car was doing. I don't know if that was just something to wrong with the updates or the tire model at that point, but these last couple have just really played into my hands, and I can feel what the car is doing, and and obviously I get a lot of setup help from my team and a lot of driving coaching. They pretty much will help you with any sort of aspect you need to kind of work on, so we can get maximum points for our team. The at Road America and especially the last one we did at Imola, I felt really confident, like I wanted to get the win. And, I just kind of made a couple mistakes in Road America. Obviously had kind of a rookie mistake and caused a big major collision at the final restart in Imola. But just the
Yeah, I forget who you ran
changing
into.
weather conditions just seem to really play into my hands. I'm able just to kind of extract a little bit more from the car. Maybe a little too many balls and not enough brains.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I remember that Imola incident. I think he took someone out. That was unfortunate for that guy. Um, but
yeah, I seem to have one really bad accident to season. I know the previous season I had pretty much a similar thing happen to me at Long Beach, where it just
yep, I
there were
remember that. Yeah,
so many cars around me, and I'm looking for my braking point, and I'm not looking in front of me at what I should be. And then, you think you've got the brake paddle, but you got absolutely no air when you're in like a huge crowd like that. And I just as soon as I touch my brakes, it locks up, and you're just a
yeah. So
passenger.
what they did was on Project Cars 2 is they have the B manufacturer aero kits that have huge downforce. Um, I believe actually the aero kits were producing almost the same amount of downforce, actually a little more than the previous generation Formula One cars on the top side. And they translated that pretty well on this game, where you really do feel that behind a car. If you're within a second behind a driver, you're really battling the aero push. Um, but Imola was one of our races where we did have some weather as well, which added a curveball and a late race restart. We had a big pile up, cost some guys some positions. Um, but obviously now we're going into Silverstone, where we haven't ran there yet on Project Cars 2, but for the most part, I think guys are familiar with the circuit. I know myself going in, I've practiced a little bit this week. I'm going to probably do some more practice, possibly even tonight or tomorrow. But it's one of those tracks where the gearing is funky because you have a lot of really slow corners, but then you have a lot of fast sections of the course. So what it does is it creates a really hard decision on how you set your gearing. Um, I think the arrow wise, I think most guys are going to be around the same. But it's again, it's a fine line of, well, how much do you want on the slow end, and then how much you want on top end. Um, but Silverstone's one of those tracks where you can't really baby the course. You kind of have to go after it, and it's one of those tracks where if you make a mistake, it's not like a little one. It's usually a big one, and um, so I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, Obviously, you can't give too much info because you're part of Ganassi, but have you guys practiced at all yet for Friday? Um, and now this will be your last race of the season, I believe, because I think you said you missed Texas in a couple weeks. But are you guys happy with what you guys
Oh
got
yeah.
going into Friday?
It's constantly work in progress. There's obviously no perfect setup, especially around Silverstone, with it being, like you said, like a lot of low speed stuff and a lot of high speed stuff. It's constantly compromising on the gearing and the aero and the chassis setup, because everybody else is running the exact same car as you, so there's not going to be any person with any sort of discernible advantage. It's going to be who's going to run the most trimmed out car, and who's going to be able to get that trimmed out car to basically tip into the corner properly. And it's really exaggerated at Silverstone, with it being pretty much flat on a plane. It's so hard to get the car to tip in without the added benefit of any sort of banking or elevation change. It's going to
Absolutely,
be
and I think
bad.
that's the one thing I struggled with practicing this week was the rear end sliding around a little bit through the slow corners, because you set it up for the fast corners, but the slow corners you're dealing with that slide a little bit. And from what I've heard, me and Frankie's lap times are very similar, so it should be another really good race. Um, Levi, do you have anything to add to that before we transition over to iRacing and finish this thing up?
I guess the thing in general is just like, is there a possible ability of looking at a different series going into PCars, like a different altogether series, or is it pretty much gonna stay the three that you guys do right now?
So real quick on my end, so the IndyCar, like I said, has been around forever. It's probably our most competitive series. It's our most attended series. Um, the IndyCar will always stay on that Friday. It will always be there. Um, multi-class is kind of off and on. It kind of usually by the end of the season the interest dies off a little bit. So if we did something else, we probably wouldn't even do it on Sunday. The Tuesdays, I guess, would be more on Doot's end because, like I said, that's kind of his thing. It's been a fine line. It's been tough to try to find a series or car that guys want to race the whole season, but I'm sure Duke can add more to that.
Yeah, Tuesdays kind of went through a growing phase ever since Project Cars 1. Project Cars 1 Formula C understeered a lot, and everybody was kind of, getting sick of trying to, tune the car to kind of get rid of that understeer and tame it, so you could kind of get some good lap times in without constantly super turn in early and just understeer through the apex, which seemed just kind of gimmicky to us. So we kind of went on to the Formula Renault, which we did, I think, for a season, and then Project Cars 2 came out, and we did a couple other series, and we eventually went back to the Formula C. But at that point, the damage model was a little bit skewed. You'd hit a pylon, and if your wing didn't fall off, it would be at 50% damage, and it would be like literally you had a parachute hanging out the back of the car. So obviously that didn't go over too well with the drivers, and we kind of got sick of it after a season and switched back to the Formula Renault. A little bit of a growing phase, and we almost kind of a bit of a crisis because Tuesday was always a really good competitive series, and the interest had kind of died down. So we just kind of decided to go back to the grassroots, and luckily the Formula C this update is nice and oversteery this car, and there's lots of tunability with the aero, and the damage model is way better than it used to be. The car is actually quite resilient compared to what it used to be. So I've got high hopes for the series. I think it's gonna be another really competitive season, since everybody's kind of already got their base tunes already set up for a lot of the stuff. So it should be just basically no growing after this. It's just stay on the Formula C and watch it hopefully grow and become even more competitive, especially with Way Too Fast now joining us. He's seemed to really raise the bar up another level for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Second that. Anytime you can add a guy with some speed, it adds to the league. I don't think I have anything else to add. So thank you, Doot, for coming on. And I'll see you Friday.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
man.
night.
You too.
So that transitioned us into Levi's section, where I'm sure he's been waiting all night to talk about this, because he's leading a particular championship. So we're kind of in a transition period with the Iracing stuff. We had the IndyCar series going. Didn't really pan out like we wanted it to. Might have bitten off a little more than we wanted, but we had the truck season, which was very successful. We had average 15 guys a race. Justin Krasneski picked up another title, dominated the playoffs. Although at Homestead, I was literally a truck length away from maybe making a run at it on the last lap. So we're kind of in our middle season here. We're doing a mini super late model season. We'll talk about the truck series a little bit later in the when we're done with the super late model. But so super late model series is 5-race shootout series. Race 1 we were at what the heck did we race? We were at South Boston race 1, where Levi, basically, you were basically you and William were kind of the top guys in the race. I know myself, I was around that P3, P4 range in the feature. Then we went to Concord. Concord was kind of a reverse situation where I was probably the faster guy. You were P2 mid-race. We had pit stops. I got caught in the back, couldn't make my way back through, got involved in an accident, and that was the end of that one. Took home another win, which obviously were your first 2 wins. And then this past race, now I obviously couldn't get in for some reason with the session. So now these races aren't broadcasted, so we'd have to rely a lot more on what you have on input-wise. But we have, so this past week we were at the Bull Ring, which is literally, it sounds exactly what it is. It's just this little track that's just braking, tons of turning, tons of work to get around. It sounded like the feature, though, was pretty exciting from what I heard in post chat. if you want to talk about that. I mean, now obviously going into this past Monday, you won 2 races in a row. You've already had a decent point lead with only a 5-race season. Can you talk a little bit about the bull ring race? Like I said, it sounded like we had a lot of guys with a chance to win late in the race.
Yeah, talk about the bull ring. It was a very good race. Not too many cautions like we've seen at Concord. Track was a lot better raceable. We did come in with a custom setup. I helped basically make the base, but I only really based it off of it was ORP, and Cameron and Teal did the rest of the work on it.
Now,
So
before we go even further, just a reminder for guys, like the super late model is just a beast of a car.
yeah,
I actually ran a K&N lobby like as soon as I got kicked from the session, and I'm like, this is like, I feel like I'm racing with training wheels on. I mean, the car is, I don't know if I'm correct here, but it's aerodynamically, it's got a lot of grip, just the way the body's designed. I think it seems like it's a fairly lighter stock car. And it's got I think it's got close to 500 horsepower. And on these short tracks, you really feel that wheel spin. So these cars are beasts. So
yeah,
it takes a lot just to run a lap, let alone race with the guys. So now saying that, you go into the bull ring, the setup was pretty on the edge.
yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so if you want to go into that, like I said, talk about the night, talk about the feature.
So basically, I did the same thing I've done in the last few races. Like I said, cool thing about the super light model is the way the car drives. Car was set up basically to come out of the corner. You had to throttle it. You can't really just mash it. So kind of cool to have. Problem is, I decided that I was gonna pit on the first caution. Of course, I think it was like lap 20 or so. So next caution comes around at 50 or 60 or 40, I think it was, and I decided to stay out on old tires. And on old tires, the car got looser and looser. Like there's points where I had to feather it off the corner, and I was almost spinning myself. So I was basically holding up everyone at the front of the pack. Andrew kept on giving me a couple little bumps, and I decided that the next caution I was gonna have to go in and get some tires. Well, that happened. Vic decided to stay out then, and Vic was second place for a while. I was finally able to get past him, and they all pitted with like 10 laps to go. I stayed out because I had about 20 lap old tires. It wasn't too bad as it was the lap or the one before. I've noticed with these super light models is that you can typically stay out on older tires and still be able to get a pretty good finish because they're pretty hard to pass at these short tracks. Not saying that's going to work at Richmond, obviously. I guess I'm giving you too much of my winning information right now. Um, but anyways, we decided to stay out. We were able to get past Vic. We were able to keep the lead, and basically, about I think 2 laps ago, we got hit by Vic again, and we almost lost it coming out of turn 3, and he basically let off the gas and just let me keep on going on the victory number 3. So I give a heck of a shout out to him for basically almost wrecking me, but not even taking the spot. Most people would have took it, so kind of surprised by that, honestly.
Yeah, well, that's news to me. Now Vic, he's a guy that's been with us for a while now. He's one of our original iRacers from last year. He's a guy that usually is up front. He's usually hanging around there. That's surprising because he's going for his first win, so I guess it kind of shows you the kind of dude he is. And from talking to him, short track racing isn't his cup of tea. And it's kind of neat to see him run up front. So you picked up the win, 3 wins, 3 races. I wouldn't necessarily say that maybe you were the class of the field in all 3 races. I think, like I said, we talked about how race 1, I felt like William was probably the guy. Concord, well, first race it was probably you and William. Race 2, Concord, again, was me and you. Race 3, the bull ring, it seemed like Andrew was pretty fast. I was kind of surprised to see that he struggled, I guess, late in the race.
Yeah, it was really.
But what I see is the experience is definitely something that you seem to really have, and I noticed that in the trucks is that experience to just hang there and take care of your car and take care of the equipment. So you have 3 wins in 3 races. It's going to need to be an absolute collapse of a season. Now, with only 10, 12 guys a race, because it's, obviously it's not the most popular car. I mean, right now you have a 29-39. You have a 25-point gap. We base it off the NASCAR points. I mean, obviously the heats offer points, but with only 5 guys a heat, for you, I mean, you probably have to finish last in every heat and every feature the rest of the year to probably not win. So, but we talked about this. You really enjoy Richmond, so I'm sure Richmond's going to be a fun race. I personally really love Richmond. I've always done really well there. Official races, and I don't run them very often. I usually try to get in for Richmond because I just like that track.
Yeah.
It's another track it's a bull ring, but on these cars, it's going to feel like it's a 1.5 mile, 2 mile track because it's just we'll finally be able to open it up a little bit compared to where it's just throttle down, brake, 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 turn, turn, a little bit of throttle, brake, turn, a little bit of throttle. Richmond, you're going to have some time to really use the throttle up. So if you want to talk about Richmond and what you expect out of the car there.
Yeah. Yeah. Going into this, this is actually I have not ran many of these super late model races, to be honest. It's probably going into my 5th one now. Well, actually, this will be my 6th race. Not too much experience in these cars. I just like short track racing, so I just love kind of the short track cars also when it comes with it. With Richmond though is for these cars, I think it's a little big. So I think we have a tighter setup from what I've heard. I haven't tested it out. One of the things I do want to test out because I think we may want to make a minor adjustment to the setup, and it's not really an adjustment. It's what we did with the last setup. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the fuel cell weight. These things carry 22 gallons of fuel. Really, we don't even need to run that. We need to run like half that, and we can still able to make the race on really no pit stop at all. So that's one thing I want to look into to see how that works, and just to see if that helps the setup any, not be super tight. Because if we can have a little bit of a neutral setup versus that super tight, I think it would give us a little bit better racing going into the race. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where whatever's going to produce a better race. So I don't know. I have no clue on the setup end.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm going
going
by
in.
what Andrew told me. He told me it was super tight.
Yeah, well, Andrews will probably listen to this. I don't take anything he says seriously.
Yeah.
Because he's the worst. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the late model.
Yeah, it's
I
a
really
fun
feel like
car. It
yeah,
just
my luck has just sucked, absolutely sucked.
yeah, like I saw
Fifth,
Andrew.
fifth at South Boston, where I probably should have finished third. 10th at Concord, where I got totaled, and then the lag issue at the bull ring. So
Hey,
I just would like to win. I've won a race in every one of our seasons that we've had, besides the IndyCar, where I didn't really get to make any much of the races because of internet issues. So I'd really like to win at Richmond, um,
hey,
but
now you know how my
we'll
truck
see how that
series
goes.
was.
Now, the big news is something we've been working on over the last couple of days, where me, you, and Josh Personet, guys that are going to really take the truck series. First things first, we finally have a broadcasting crew that we can rely on, that we feel are going to do what they need to do, that are going to give us a very affordable price. They're going to do all 18 races. Vic Bloom and Justin Krasneski, they're both going to kind of step out of the cars. Vic works out that he kind of wanted to break from racing a little bit. Justin, same thing. So they're going to broadcast. I can't think of a better combination as far as who knows the drivers, who knows our series. Two guys that really have contributed a lot to what we have as far as making it to races, getting guys in our league, doing everything they can to promote what we have. I think they're going to do an excellent job, so that's awesome. Now, obviously, the downside with that is having a broadcaster on board for all the races. It's going to be $5 for all drivers to sign up. Obviously, that all goes to the broadcast. But with that, we're gonna probably run a special event or two where you guys can join but like I said, $5 for 18 broadcasted races. I think that's pretty reasonable. Going into that season, something that we talked a little bit about before, where you have the playoffs and stages and all this. We're kind of going back in time with this truck series. We're gonna have 18 races, straight points. So you need to be on your game from Daytona all the way to our last race at Gateway. There's no break. There's no, okay, well, I already have a win. I'm in. It's going to be, I got to point race my way through every race, the championship. The tracks are very different. We really wanted to make a different schedule. Again, it's very throwback looking schedule. Took a lot of driver input. We're going to be Daytona, Kansas, Iowa, Pocono, Lucas Oil Raceway, Mossport, Phoenix, Indianapolis, Milwaukee, Dega, Eldora, Watkins Glen, Richmond, Dover, Charlotte, Darlington, Michigan, Gateway. I mean, for someone to win this championship, you're going to have to be good on the road. You're going to have to be a good plate racer. You're going to have to know how to manage your truck on a short track. You might be able to get away with not knowing the dirt much, but what do you think going in? I mean, and you're another guy who's fairly new to Elite, but has really done a lot in a short time. What does it mean to a series to have two guys that really are invested in the series and aren't just doing it because, hey, it's $10 a race, we're getting some money. It's we want to do this because we generally care. What do you think that does for the series? And then discuss what you think the schedule in the format going in. And obviously, we're going to be kicking off here August 20th. It's going to be the first race at Daytona. So what do you think on both those fronts?
Yeah. First and foremost, I just want to have a better season than I did last year. In the truck series, obviously, I didn't get to the truck series stats I really wanted to, but missed a few races. But I think this truck series, I think, will be a contender for a top 3 in the points. Hope to get that other championship as long as the SLM goes how it is. Hopefully, we can bring home another championship. But with having broadcasters that have been in the league, it's a tremendous thing. I also race over in 3-wide racing, as probably most people in Elite know. Monday nights are done with a crew that is all done by 3-wide old drivers. You have Tanner Sharp in the booth along with Justin Kolb, one of my former teammates, and Carlos is the man in the booth. What it does is just brings this atmosphere. They know the drivers, they know what's going on, they know how we all race, and it's just easy for them to talk about what's going on because they know us on a personal level, and they just know they know I'm racing, they know how I'm gonna race. If they know I get bumped, they probably know what's gonna happen to the person that bumped me. Like they just know what's expected out of the drivers, and because they've raced around them, they know how we're gonna race each other. So it's that kind of level of respect, and the way they just go about it is just so much better. Especially from a broadcast standpoint, is it just makes the broadcasting so much easier. They're not as nervous because they've raced around us, so it's not this whole like, oh, should I say this on the air or not? They pretty much know what they can say around us and what they can't. That will makes it for a better broadcast altogether. Going into the schedule part of it, I like the schedule. A couple of the tracks I'm a little bit more curious on than I thought I would be, to be honest. We'll put it that way, I guess. I have a couple tracks on there that I have circled for sure.
So what are
Milwaukee.
your curious tracks? And when you mean that, are you saying curious is like, well, this is going to be interesting, or like curious is like, oh, I've never ran a lap there. This is going.
Curious as in, I guess the schedule, the way it's done. I'm more. How do I put this in a manner? The way it's done, the schedule part of it. Let me look at it. So you have, for me, curious wise, is we have quite a few tough tracks in a row. I'll put it this way. So you go from race 10, Talladega. Race 11. If you don't have a good race at Talladega, get in that big one. You're like, oh, great. You're on the Eldora next. Maybe you're not the dirt guy that you think you are. Cool. That works, Just barely escape through Eldora, and then you go to Watkins Glen. So you have 3 major tracks. Well, how do you put this? You have a super speedway. Don't know what's going to happen. You could be Dale Jr. for all you know, or you could be Ricky Stenhouse for all you know. So I mean, who knows? And then you go to Eldora. I mean, I'm no Kyle Larson by any means, so I'm not sure how that's gonna go. And then you go to Watkins Glen, which I'm now Marcus Ambrose either, so you know what I mean. I'm not saying
Yeah,
I'm
I
that
mean, and
person, but I mean
that's
I know how
what's
to get around dirt. I know how to
you
race
know,
a
and
road course.
that's what I think is what I wanted to do with the schedule as far as it. I think people get into a situation where
Like a
it's
rhythm.
like, well, we're going to go to Atlanta, and we're going to go to Charlotte, and we're going to go to Michigan, we're going to go to Auto, and we're going to go to Chicago, we're going to go to, uh, you know, Texas. It's like you have all of these awesome tracks, and it's just you know you get into a rhythm there, and it's kind of like, and that's kind of what I felt the last season was like. Yeah, like the race was good, but it's just like they all kind of drive the same after a while as far as the way the tracks are designed, um,
Oh yeah.
and I think that's what we wanted to get at. I mean, you look at it. I mean, like I said, with a straight points championship, you can't just say, "Oh, you know, I guess I could just skip Dega, or I could skip Dora, or skip Watkins Glen." I mean, you to add to that, you have Talladega, Eldora, Watkins Glen, Richmond. So you got a short track. I mean, you have all four disciplines right there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we could look at those four races and say, okay, that's going to be where you're going to see, you know, I think probably by race even 8, you're probably going to have a clear cut. Okay, these are 2, 3, 4 guys that are going to be there. So you could look at those races and say, okay, well, that's where we're going to see what guys have. Um, you know, but that was the thing I got from a lot of guys was they don't want easy tracks. They don't want hard. They don't want these really easy tracks. They want tracks that are gonna, you know, show what guys have.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think also, and this was from a competition standpoint, with scrapping the stages, I think that will prevent some of the aggression you might see early in a race, where you know we ran. So let's say we did Iowa, we ran a 100 lap race at Iowa. You have the stage at lap 50. Well, 50 laps clicks off real quick at Iowa, and you really can't just wait around. You kind of have to go and get the stage points. And you get to the stage, and it's like, okay, well, crap, like the race is going to be over here in 40, 50 laps. You don't really have a lot of time to just sit back. I think with the stage is gone, I think that will keep guys. I think it'll put guys in situations like, all right, you know what, like I have 100 laps now until where the points starts counting for me. I can manage the truck a little bit, be patient. Um, but like I said, that was the thing I was impressed with guys kind of wanted these little quirky tracks. I mean, we're going to tracks that, you know, this is something that um, when you look at a truck schedule, this is something that I think a lot of people would like to see in real life, where you have the plates, you have the road courses, you have the dirt, you have the short tracks. You know, it's not this mile and a half show over and over again. Um, so when you look at that, what are a couple of tracks that you would say like you think that could be a race that you could win, and what are some tracks that you look at that are like, ooh, like I'm gonna probably have to practice for that?
Yeah. For me, first and foremost, I'm upset we didn't get Bell Island. Just saying.
Yeah, you can blame Vic for that, and she's gonna listen to this. So
Darn.
I really wanted to throw Bell Island, just from the standpoint that I'm a massive IndyCar fan, and I think it's
That's in my home
craziness to
state.
I think it's craziness to run trucks in there, and that's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But nobody else really mentioned it. He
Really?
mentioned it, and then he was like, you know what, you really don't have to run there because I'm just gonna broadcast. And I was like, all right, well,
Damn it. I want
going
to.
at it. So
That's actually one
you
of
know,
the tracks I was looking forward to. I've
maybe
ran
we
there
gotta
in a
maybe we gotta throw it on that K&N schedule.
yeah.
Um,
Well, we
but
got Villeneuve, so well, I think I said it right. Hopefully, Dot's not here anymore. Could ask him. Anyways, so yeah, a couple of the tracks I'm looking forward to. I'm a big short track fan. So anything with short tracks, obviously, I'm gonna look at Lucas Oil, Phoenix. Hopefully, we're running Phoenix old because Phoenix new is I do not like the dog leg, but it doesn't matter either way. Milwaukee's been one of my best tracks on iRacing since coming over. Three wide up led almost over 200 laps and about 300 laps participated in there. So it's one of my tracks I always circle every time I go to it. The
Yeah,
other
that's a
one,
neat track. It's a very old school.
yeah,
You know, you look at the corners and they're really not. Um, I mean, you look at the corners from the top, and turn one is really almost like a. It's
it's
not even
flat.
shaped like a. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's flat. But like you look at the design of the corner, and it's really not even like a half circle. It's kind of
No.
like this quirky little. Um, and the lane is about a lane and a half, so it's
Yeah, it's one lane. It's a short track, but
yeah.
it's a short mile track, I guess we'll put it that way. It races like Martinsville, let's just be honest. I love flat tracks. It's one of my favorite things to do. The other thing I'm looking forward to is because of being on the three wide side of it, I have really hard road competition over there on that side, and I honestly kind of look at myself as improving my road side since being over there and since actually starting to run these IMSA races. So I'll definitely say Watkins Glen and Canadian Tire will be one of the tracks I think I'll be doing better at than I would have about a year ago. We'll put it that way. Couple tracks I
Yeah,
know I'll probably have to practice for. Eldora for sure. Still working on my road, or I mean my dirt side of it. It's just one of those lanes I haven't really fully picked up yet. And really, that's honestly the only track I see there. I'm a real good at Indie Runner, real good at Pocono. Any track that's kind of different.
yeah. I think the road course stuff's interesting because it's a weird um, it's a weird technique. It requires a lot of different things. Um, you know, on the Project Cars end, you know, I really only drive high speed cars on the road course. So like the Indy car, Formula C is still faster than what most things are. You know, prototypes where it's real quick movements, super high downforce, super high speeds, quick braking, um, and you know then I'll do like a touring car, something big on there, and I struggle with it. On here, I haven't had tons of, you know, I would consider myself a road course guy, but on here I haven't really ran much road course. I like an Indy car on here, I'm just as fast as anyone else. Not much experience with the stock cars and the truck end thing. So um, to me, it's going to be one of those where I'm just going to try to get some experience because, like I said, I don't have a lot of it. But you know, road course racing is always fun.
Yeah, they
What I'm
definitely
really
don't
looking
break.
forward to is um, just running tracks for the first time. Um, when I look at this list, you know, I never driven a truck at Lucas Oil, never at Indy, never at Mosport, never at um, Watkins Glen, never did a truck at Darlington. I don't think I don't even have the track yet.
Darlington's a fun one. It's gonna be
Yeah,
tough.
and I think giving guys enough time for that, we might turn it into a nice throwback race where
Yeah,
everybody's
I
gonna
was
have to
gonna
run like a
say.
throwback truck scheme. Um, but now again, before we wrap the everything up here, um, we're gonna try to do this weekly. It's gonna get harder, obviously, once the summer ends and I'm teaching and um, I have somewhat of a social life. So there might be times where Levi's on here with other guys. I might not be here. There might be times where maybe I'm just here and we do something. I don't know. It might just become bi-weekly. You know, we're gonna do as much as possible. But so I want to thank Levi for doing it. I want to thank everybody who takes part in our leagues. We're up over getting close to 550 league races hosted, so we're getting close to 600 here. Uh, so again, real quick, so today's Wednesday, so Friday, IndyCar at Silverstone. The Elite Cup Series is at Phoenix. Saturday, the lights are at Bristol. Um, Tuesday, the trucks are at uh, Bristol as well. And then Tuesday, Formula C is in action at Ostersleben. IndyCar's off. The multi-class is off, but then July 22nd, the multi-class has our 2.4 hour of Le Mans, which would be a pretty interesting race. So, yeah, I just want to thank everybody. I'm really excited with the iRacing end. I'm trying to really looking forward to getting that started. You got any closing comments?
Yeah, Super Late Models is off this coming Monday, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, so Super Late Models are off this Monday. We'll be back in action the following Monday. Looking forward to that. Obviously, Rich on Under the Lights.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna
yeah, I
look
want to
for
thank Doot for
running
coming
for it.
on the Project Cars Now with Mega. I want to thank Levi for running. And just hope everybody has a good week.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
We
See you
see ya.
later.